Hi, Karen.
Hi, everybody.
How are you? So good to see
Well.
you.
Me too. This is so nice.
So nice.
Awesome. Well, I think this might be everyone. If anyone else decides to join, they can just pop on in. I kind of wanted to just thank you guys for diving in and doing this with me. This is something that I've wanted to do for quite a while, and I really couldn't think of a better group of ladies to do it with. And I specifically wanted to thank Christine and Nina for helping me kind of bring this idea to life and encourage me to do something within this platform. It's been a fun kind of personal exploration for myself. And a few logistical things just before we get started. Like I mentioned in all of the emails, I am recording the conversation just so that we can share it if we choose to with all of our social platforms and kind of get the word out that women can gather in this way, and it can be super informal and a lot of shifts can happen just within a 45-minute conversation. So there's nothing official about this recording. It's more just something fun that we can share if we want to. And I know some of you probably have childcare helping you with the littles tonight. So I wanted to just be conscious of everyone's time and cap it at 8 o'clock if we get to that point. How does that all sound, everyone?
Yeah, sounds great.
I just wanted to say I'm getting misty-eyed already, and I don't know why the emotion is coming up, but I can tell this is going to be a wonderful group.
Oh.
I've been feeling those feelings leading up to this as well. It feels like a really special gathering.
Mm-hmm.
And I also just wanted to share that I think the spirit of tonight is about collaboration, progressive conversations. I know most of you, if not all of you, work with other women and are mothers yourselves. So I think that gives us this unique perspective to come to this conversation with some deeper empathy towards the needs of what women need and mothers need. And I think ultimately the goal is to shift the cultural norm around mother care. And I think that happens through this type of vulnerability and like open-minded conversation. So thank you for joining me for this. And then just as like a disclaimer, I have zero credential and expertise in tonight's conversation around rites of passage. It is just something that I feel called to explore personally, and think that exploring it with other women is probably the best way to do that. So this evening you can join in with all of your wisdom and knowledge with as much depth or brevity as you feel called to do so. I'm really excited to see what one kind of brings to the table and what you're inspired to share. How is that all feeling for you guys?
It feels great. Thank you so much, Cassie.
Absolutely. So because it's been a year since we've all last seen each other and scrolled through each other's Instagrams and just witnessed what everyone was up to, I thought it might be kind of nice to, old-fashioned style, just reintroduce ourselves briefly and maybe what we feel passionate about, what our work is revolving around these days, or just anything that you would like to reconnect with the larger group. Anyone want to hop in, or I can start?
Go ahead.
Me? Okay. So I'm Cassie Ballard. My daughter turned 2 weeks ago. She's my only child. And by day, I'm spending my days as a brand designer, running my own business out of my home, I choose to work with conscious lifestyle brands and really help them find that one piece that helps them resonate the best with their audiences and to share their story through brand stories and photography. And then recently, my passion project of bringing women together like this has kind of been blooming, and started our Seva Motherhood Circle Facebook group, which is, honestly, it's just a safe space for women to gather and to have conversations like this. And it doesn't have to be happening in real time, which is why Facebook seems to be working all right for that. And then tonight's topic was honestly just something that I really want to continue exploring as a woman and as a mother. I feel really passionate about bringing rich cultures to people who don't have a rich cultural background, and just really simplifying it so that we can weave in the essence of what these other cultures do on a regular basis. So that's why I'm super excited for tonight. Anyone else would like to share?
I'll jump in. That's okay. Okay. So Karen Keeley. I have 3 kiddos. My daughter's 22, are 16 and 13. I have been nannying for a set of twins. I just keep getting passed on from family to family, which has been working very sweetly because I get to see the unfurling of them. It's always postpartum, so I start when the babies are first born. So I see this unfurling of the family and the mother coming to, and you know, being with the wee ones really feeds my heart. And I'm doing that part-time because I want to get into the postpartum doula care. And I just kept getting blocks of like the whole business part. Like I kept like creating bigger blocks and making it more difficult for me to take that step to actually do that specific care. And so recently I've just decided, basically calling myself out on, you know, putting up these blocks. And we have a doula collective here in town. I'm in Ithaca, New York. So I'm just going to jump in and start doing it. I feel like the business part is what's tricky, but like connecting with the families and the moms and serving them and the food and the children in the home, that's what's easy. And I can do that pretty effortlessly and with lots of love and care. So I feel like I just need to jump in and do that. So that's where I've been right now. And I love this, the idea of the rite of passage. I feel like it's something that was rich at a certain point when I was younger and having my babies, and the ladies in my community were having babies. We were all giving each other blessing ways and serving each other at that very sweet, tender time. And my daughter's older, so when she had her first moon, her first menstruation, I did a moon way for her. And that was very sweet. And we can talk more about that, I guess, as the conversation moves forward. So that's been my experience with rite of passage. And then with my boys, even, I would love to create a rite of passage for them. And it's trickier because they don't really have the male role model that would carry that off the way, you know, that I have been able to do for my daughter. So again, that may be another conversation, you know, at a different point. So yeah, and this is beautiful and timely, and I really value being with the women right now. It is great. So thanks for creating this.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Anyone else like to share?
So I'm Charlotte, and I am an instructor, as most of you know. All of you know. Okay. Okay. So the body work and my journey, my son turned 30 this year, and they haven't provided me with a little of our own in the family yet. So just waiting. But I've kind of stepped back from actual hands-on postpartum douling because I am involved in elder care with my mom. And my journey has covered like lots of ancient traditions. I've deepened into Ayurveda, and that's my chosen path now, but I was exposed to shamanic healing through my ex-husband, and then through the Arvigo Maya abdominal massage, I was exposed to indigenous South American cultures. So got lots of things I've done and love to share when it's right.
Absolutely. I'll have to tap into you with all the indigenous cultural knowledge that you have. I always find it so interesting to parallel how those cultures are still doing so much of what their ancestors did and how we aren't doing anything. There's got to be a way to bring some of that back together, even if it's just super, super small daily rituals. Yeah, thank you.
I'm happy to share.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm Michelle Cohen, and I'm in Washington, D.C. I'm a yoga teacher and a birth and postpartum doula. And I feel like last year, after doing the training, which was wonderful, I did jump in and kind of do some model of Ayurvedic care for some of my clients, and especially one birth client in particular it was just so beautiful, and it was sort of this whole full circle experience, and she took to heart all the suggestions and had this really beautiful postpartum experience. And yet at the same time, I realized that doing that work, and I was also juggling another postpartum client too. Oh, my phone is going off, sorry. But at that same time, I found like I could not figure out the sustainability doing this solo along with all the other things that I do and the caregiving for my own family. I have two boys. They're almost 12 and almost 10. And so it was just a lot. So I'm trying to figure out that aspect. Right now on my schedule, I have a lot of births coming up between now and the spring. And I have a little bit of postpartum support as well. One very large contract actually in May. But part of my thing that I would love to talk about when we are all able to share, and again, it could be a different conversation, but is here in the heart of DC, maybe it's not unlike other places, but it feels very like we have these women that are very career oriented. Our average first time mom age is much older. And so there's just a lot happening, and we're not very embodied and as a whole, right? And so I see what the Ayurvedic support can do for those that are open to it. And yet there's so much, often my work is sort of either being called in last minute in like emergency situations of people really struggling, and not quite enough time to kind of get everybody on board with these various rituals and rites of passage. So I feel like this is a wonderful step in that direction of how do we weave this into modern life. Personally, for me, when we're talking about rites of passage, I have a lens from my religion, which is Judaism, and various rites of passage, like using a mikvah for immersive water. I'm not particularly religious, but I am sort of involved with this women's organization that combines Jewish wisdom and spirituality and wellness. So it's the same kind of thing, like how do we bring these traditional practices into the modern experience and reinvent them in ways that feel meaningful. So that's one lens. And then the other lens is that I have a meditation practice in a Zen tradition. So there's that. And then I still feel like a newbie in the Ayurveda, but I'm slowly continuing to learn more. So thank you. Sorry, that was long.
No, it's beautiful. Well, I'd love to tap into this idea of piecing together what makes sense for that particular person. So much of my experience with the birth culture and the postpartum culture is that it's like an all or none mentality. It's almost like if you can't do all of the things, then why do any of them? And I kind of experienced a little bit of that myself in my own postpartum. It was a path that I wasn't really expecting to go down, and I almost felt like I had to throw everything that I envisioned out the window, and then I never really like grasped the things back in that I really envisioned for myself. And I think if I would have had a tool belt that kind of had just very small things that I could do to make me feel more seen or more heard or more validated, that spirit of rites of passage would have been there without a formal ceremony of sorts. So I think there is a way to weave all of the things that you're really interested in to create kind of this embodied experience that feels really good to you or to that particular woman that you're working with.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Or somebody starting to talk? I can't tell.
Nope, only you.
Okay. My name is Nina. The last time I saw most of you, I was still pregnant with my third baby. So we were camping in Florida. We had kind of like a really wild lifestyle. We're in the Asheville, North Carolina area, and I had my baby in June. It was a home birth. It was a free birth. It was like the most incredibly healing and magical thing I've ever experienced. And in the beginning of September, I started working with the Center for Sacred Window Studies, and this like whole new world opened up to me with connecting with so many students and caregivers who are in all different places with their journeys, but it's just like, no, I hear the baby crying. Knew it was gonna happen. The floor where we're staying is like really hard and I'm on like high alert for falls. But yeah, my husband's out there with him. So yeah, it's been super amazing to connect with people who are super passionate about this work. And some of them are like, haven't done anything yet, you know, like they're moms and they know they want to do this and they're so excited. And then there's people who have been doing this for like 10 years and they're just laying down their wisdom. And I'm just like blown away and inspired and fueled literally every day, like almost every day of the week. It's like hard to take a break because it's so much fun. But I'm just like really, really loving that. And I am like just now this week starting to get back into, or I guess last week, starting to get back into like one-on-one support, which has been like a missing piece for me for a couple, maybe not a couple of years, but since I became pregnant. So like a year and a half. Took a huge break that felt super necessary. And I just did like a postpartum planning consultation for an old friend. And I felt like really rusty and out of practice and awkward, but it was super nice to just connect and hold space and just to listen to them and where they're at with their journey. And I went to a mother's circle yesterday where I was like invited to do a guest presentation, but I ended up like guest facilitating because I was like, I'm not going to give a presentation about something to new moms. And we actually talked a lot about validation and lack thereof. And I heard a lot of them, all of them, expressing just the ways that they don't feel seen, and they feel like there's a lot of expectation on them, and it's like not okay for them to just feel how they feel, and not a lot of like acknowledgement for this massive transformation that they've been through and that they're still going through. And I think that it was just really amazing to be in a room with so many moms. They were all first-time moms. Actually, I was the only one in the room with 3 kids, with more than 1 kid. They were all first-time moms, including the doula who was kind of like running it. She was pregnant with her first baby, actually. And I could tell that, like, you know, they hadn't really gotten to talk about these things very much. So it was awesome for them to just like start validating each other, and then asking me for ideas, because I was really like holding back. I'm like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just going to ask these questions. And then after a while, one of them looked at me, they're like, do you have any good ideas? And I'm like, well, actually, this is where you start, like validating yourselves and each other. And it's not easy, but it's super important. And like standing your ground with family members and saying like, I don't really want your opinion right now. Like, I just want you to hear me. This is how I'm feeling right now. And this is what I'm going through. And this is what it's like for me. And that's okay. And, you know, and one of them was talking about something at one point and said, it sucks. And I looked at her and I said, yeah, it sucks. Like, I was smiling. I'm like, it sucks. Like, it's fine to feel that way. So I feel like it was just a really empowering experience in that way. And I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for including me and opening up to me and to all of us. Thank you, Cassie.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were talking about mother circles, it got me thinking about how feel like I'm hopping from like play date to play date recently with a 2-year-old. It's just like, how many play dates can you fit in 1 week? And I think I'm realizing that the reason conversations have been staying on the surface level during these conversations with other mamas is because our attention is always diverted. Mm-hmm. I mean, to put it lightly, like you're making sure your toddler's not eating something, and it's just not the space to go beyond the surface. So I always walk away feeling like all we did was talk about the things that are going wrong, or how our kid is not doing something, or how our husbands aren't doing something. And it's just this like banter back and forth. And then I realized when we meet in small groups like this, it's like the transparency just like completely goes away, and we feel really safe to go deeper. Mainly because we don't have the distractions of the outside world. But I think there's something really powerful in this circular women's energy that really helps us bring it out and to feel seen and heard, just by creating the container.
Cassie, can I jump in for a second?
Yeah.
Just say something interesting. So for the last, I've probably been doing this kind of work for about 10 years. And from when my kids were really little and being in circles myself, and I have a dear friend in our community who runs mama's circles for women, like basically as soon as they're able to and comfortable leaving the house, like at around 6 weeks to 6 months. And then she expanded it to toddler circles and other things, and it's super successful. But just from now where I am, that my kids are older also, and just seeing all of us who's here in this group, I have a mom's group that I'm part of that we meet monthly, and all of us have a little bit of different ages. But I think there's so much value, even though we're tempted, and it's important to have, like Nina said, all these sort of first-time moms together in a group. The needs of a first-time set of moms is different than second-timers or third-timers. But what I find really valuable and special is having women of varied ages and their kids of varied ages, so that you can get some perspective. Because that is a thing that is missing, I found in my own personal life, that was missing for me in those early years. and those early years, you're so in it. You are just like head down, tunnel vision, trying to keep those little small people alive, you know, like figure out how to do that successfully. But then, you know, life starts to widen back out again. And the wisdom that moms share, I remember specifically finding women in, not even in my community really, because I didn't really know where to go, but like writers who had 2 boys whose kids were now teenagers or in college when I had toddlers. Because I was like, are we gonna make it? Like, are we gonna get to that place? And so just to toss that out as an idea of, certainly you work with what you have right around you, but I think that is kind of an interesting approach as like women coming together, of because it would probably have been that way in a village, right?
Yeah, you're right, because when you're at playgroups with moms who have children of the same age, it's almost this internal comparison that you can't get out of. And you walk away actually feeling kind of gross. You start to second guess everything you've been doing and how things are going. And I think you're right. When you bring in that layered perspective, you have the opportunity to share from maybe a wiser place, but then you can also hear from someone who's been there, done that before you, and has something different to offer. For sure. Awesome. Does anyone else want to introduce their business or what they're passionate about these days? Or we can dive into exploring some of the journal prompts that were sent out.
Share a little bit and answer. I can help us get started on the prompts.
Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Soumya and I'm here in San Francisco, and I created a business called Mother Ayurveda Healing, also called Ma, and I am a trained Ayurvedic chef and a mama of 4. Similar to Nina, I have my third son, 4th child, was born in May, and it was very shortly after we had finished the program. So it was really special for me to take all of that rich wisdom into my own experience. And I also just went back to work last week, and I have my first postpartum client who's 10 days postpartum. So I'm really getting these really unique perspectives to tap in. And what I'm really noticing is, similar to what you guys were saying, it's really hard to tap into the sacredness. And I feel like the sacred window terminology and the essence of the sacred window is really hard to feel the pure potential of it, because of the vata and because of everything that we're doing, and the breastfeeding and the lack of sleep and the hormones. And really the best way to tap into the sacredness is through song and through like mother circles and through abhyanga and through meditation and through really not speaking verbally, but just more tapping into like the energy and the consciousness. And I have found that in addition to the mother blessings, that the closing of bone ceremony was very powerful in ending the first 6 weeks, the sacred window, and entering, okay, I'm a completely different person. And now this is my new me in the postpartum period.
Yeah. So was the closing of the bone ceremony something that is brought in from a cultural background, or was this something that you pursued because you knew of the tradition?
I actually was the chef for another mother who, it was her ceremony, and she's Korean, but I know it's traditionally, I believe, a Mayan tradition, but her midwife offers it to all of her clients, and it's like bringing the body back together postpartum and like closing of the bones, but also realizing that you have this whole new body now that you're working with, in this whole new experience in motherhood.
Absolutely.
I think it's there's so much value in being able to take pause and create a rite of passage to symbolize the magnitude of this shift. And for some people, I think that it can be really accessible to feel the sacredness of the whole window. I feel like I'm one of those people. It's very easy for me to tap into the astonishing magnitude of giving the whole piece of it. But I think that for a lot of people, it's a little harder because you have to really sort through all of the uncertainty or the scary parts or the elevated vata. And I think that that is where rites of passage or ceremony or significance can be offered. And I think a caregiver is a really important place for that to start, because it is so often not built into our family traditions anymore. So what I envision is having us as caregivers be able to suggest and bring some sacredness and honor the transition using the mother principles at the very least, but also being able to help a birther realize how special this moment really is, and that they can take pause and feel that. They can sort of sort through all the uncertainty and scariness of it and actually just come heart to heart. And Soumya, I love what you said about the quiet, like maybe nothing audible, just feeling. And I think that more and more as I work in this field, and now I'm working in this field as an educator. I also have 4 little ones, and so, well, the oldest isn't so little now, he's 12, but more and more I'm realizing, and Michelle, this when you were speaking, I thought about this as well, that it's really too much for one person to be the caregiver when we're working in this conscious manner. And I think that it is our responsibility as caregivers to help facilitate the family and the community. And ideally we can work with women before their babies are born, so that we can have time to really ask them the questions and help them gather and give them some direction on gathering their people, so that when the sacred window happens, we can help facilitate, but we're not the only person there who's offering the support, because it's very rare that your caregiver is living with you. They're gonna go home, and then if nobody else is on board to step in and help out, that's scary. That's scary for a new parent. So I've been thinking about that a lot.
Yeah, I think there's something really interesting about, the work that we've kind of been talking about is this postpartum window and how to bring the sacredness back in, or how to do things through the Ayurvedic lens to best support that new mama. But the postpartum, from my perspective, does not end after 6 weeks. It doesn't end after the first year. It keeps going. It evolves, but it keeps going. And I think even with the beautiful ceremonies of closing the bones or having a blessing way before birth, it only is getting you to like a certain point, and then you're kind of just left there. And so being 2 years postpartum from my end now, I'm trying to find those really tangible things that mothers or caregivers, if you still have that resource to you, like what are these guiding principles that we can use in the day-to-day to really tap back into that sacred window, to continue feeling honored and to continue feeling supported. I was doing a little bit of online searching around like the Moroccan postpartum window, and I find it incredibly fascinating, their elaborate process of welcoming a new mama and honoring her, supporting her with food and herbs and massage and ceremony and singing and this whole elaborate thing. And it really got me excited to use each of those like touch points, kind of like the mother principles that we were learning in our class, as like the little reminders. So for them, they use 6 different levels of care. They welcome a new mama, they honor her, they nourish her, they nurture her, they clothe her, and then they celebrate her. So if we use those different like touch points, what could we do today in our own life or in our own practice that touches on even just one of those things? So how could you personally nourish her today? And maybe it's simply just tea. No, maybe it's just a text out to that mom, just to feel like she has been seen and heard that day. So
No,
like how can we expand it beyond a sacred window of time?
so I'm going to touch on what you said about closing her. And
Yeah.
the image that came to mind were the containment holes of infant Abhyanga, but to touch mama, you know, either on the sides of her face and tell her something she needs to hear, or her shoulders, or a hug, or even just containing her hips and teaching her how to use a faja, which is, you know, the belly binding, but more of a wrap just around the hips.
Right. Absolutely. I think we all know what it feels like to get a really good hug, you know, especially when you've been struggling. So yeah, I think having maybe a more conscious touch is something that's really attainable to anyone. Any other suggestions maybe on how we can bring this into maybe our own personal lives, so that when we're caring for other people or educating other people, we have like a little tool belt to use?
I'm happy to share one thing that I did for a client. This was actually a package that I did with another person before I actually ever did the training with Sacred Window. But it was a friend of mine who does some personal chefing, so she was doing the food. But at the end of our 6-week time together for this third time mom, we did a like a chakra blessing where she prepared food related to each various chakra, and she unfortunately wasn't able to attend, but so it was me and the mom and the baby. But I went through and read these blessings for each chakra, which is a little bit similar to the closing of the bones. I know each place sort of has an intention or a blessing. And so it was, and then after we did the blessing, and they were all very sort of specific to her, but also related to that particular energy center. And then we shared a meal together, which was really nice. And then just reflected on her time and how 6 weeks had passed and how this postpartum felt to her versus her other experiences. And it was really lovely. And so sometimes I forget that it doesn't have to be something huge, but it also can be pulled from any angle, kind of. And this is not someone who is super woo-woo or spiritual, if we would say that, but is open, definitely does yoga and all of that. But I think a lot about what Christine was saying in terms of the sacredness. I sometimes feel like the sacredness is something that we have to carry with us and our energy, rather than expect to always find it in the client, because so much of that early postpartum is so surface of just trying to sort of stay afloat. But getting back to your question, sort of in terms of how do we prolong this from past just that sacred window. I think we just need more blessings, more ceremonies, more celebrations for all the things, you know? Like, I'm sure as moms, we celebrate our child's first day of school, first lost tooth, first whatever. You know? Maybe we have to celebrate our firsts as well throughout.
Definitely.
I love that.
Recently ended our breastfeeding journey, and it was definitely one of those moments where I was like, okay, I think this should be recognized, like not by everyone else, but like within myself. Like, let's take a pause and thank my body for allowing me to do almost 2 years of breastfeeding, to thank my baby for hanging in there, because we struggled through every possible thing that you could struggle with. And once I kind of made that conscious decision to honor it as something to honor, it didn't feel as terrifying to leave behind. I was really dreading like that last time that we would breastfeed, and I honestly now cannot remember the last time, because it was just such a peaceful fading out that in the honoring process, her and I were both ready when the time came. And that was one of the only times during my postpartum that I actually feel completely validated by an experience. And it was an experience that was obviously shared between someone else, my baby, but also like my immediate family, for supporting me and allowing us to get through all of that. So even, 2 years post, taking those little pauses to honor a milestone is a really big deal. It feels really big for the person in it.
I think it's part of digesting it. It's part of the subtle, the subtle channels, and having them flowing continuously and at a good open flow. Because if it's not, things aren't digested or not recognized, or experiences go by without seeing them, I think that's where things can get stuck.
Absolutely.
I would love to share something that I unexpectedly discovered this postpartum time. It was through like doing some experimental healing work with a friend who I just spontaneously thought of, connected with, and she was like, I want to try this new thing that's over the phone. It's like sound healing, and I don't even remember her exact description, but I was like, well, I had this intuition to connect with you, and we were both like clear that we needed to work together. And I think I was around 4 months postpartum, and the place that we started with like meditation and visualization was with me recentering in my pelvic area. And this might sound really simple, but in my experience in pregnancy and birth, I have so much focus there in that area, in low belly, pelvis, like all my focus is there. But in my postpartum times, I've been way more in the heart space and just like physically, breastfeeding and anxiety, and there's just so much up here. And so to have this experience where I was recentering in my pelvis after giving birth and being out of the birth energy, it was super powerful. It was like, whoa, this is still a powerful place for me, and still like a place of power I can still connect with here. And it was super grounding, because I was able to like send my energy and awareness there and then down through my legs and feet. And again, like maybe that's really simple, but it was just something that I never really cognitively thought about for postpartum, that now I'm like, oh my God, I want to share this with every woman. Like, if you didn't recheck in with your pelvis yet and your low belly, like, you can still go there and access that place of power and grounding. And I actually like have, in my experience, been feeling like that's kind of where the mother essence lives, but more on that to come.
I think in regards to like tapping back into the pelvis, breath as well, tapping back into your breath for me does a very similar thing where it like really puts me in one place. It takes me out of my headspace and then it allows me to just kind of like stand on firmer ground and tap back into my inner wisdom and like what I'm actually needing or what I'm actually wanting to say in that moment. And when we breathe from like a big belly, you know, we get out of the short breath that comes from here, and it just feels a lot more stable and nourishing, like all around. So I love that, Nina. I know we are getting close to 8, if not 8 already. Time is flying. If anyone wanted to share one last kind of comment about maybe how you personally have honored your own version of a rite of passage, whether it's actually ceremonial or just something small that you do, like Nina just shared, to inspire us to maybe do something like that within our own home practices.
This question reminded me that I don't do that enough.
Yeah.
I think for me, I feel like as the years have gone by and my family has grown, life is so full that I have decided to create just moments of bliss within all the everyday moments, so that a few times a day I can just let go of everything and like look deeply into whoever in my family is right in front of me, look deeply into their eyes and just be in that moment right there in entirety. Because, you know, my days of like meditating for a long time in front of a little altar in my room, like I can't have an altar in my room because they'll tear it apart. And, you know, like it's not time for that, but I can just create it in the moments that are there. That feels perfect.
I guess I have when I menstruate, I kind of hold that sacred space for myself. I take care to always wear something red, whether it's if I'm feeling more bold and I want a red dress or a red scarf, or if I'm feeling a little more subtle and I just want red jewelry. Or sometimes I have this red tank top, like tube that I'll just wear around my womb. That's just for me. But I feel like in doing that, I'm honoring that time for myself. And I often use that time to rejuvenate. Sometimes I feel strong and energized and I want to, you know, go out in other ways. And I communicate with my family that it's my moon time. So I'm going to step back a little bit and offer them to cook and do more so that I can just kind of sit and menstruate. I'll often say, sorry, I'm shedding my uterus lining right now. I can't help you with that. But it's love and it's time. And I'm teaching my boys, and my daughter is very much empowered and celebrates her moon time. And that's just something that can be done as big or as soft or as subtle. But I found that that's been that time of the month for me is my regular time that I just, as you were saying, you know, that's just, I hold that sacred space in each moment of that time, you know, each day while I'm bleeding. And it's lovely. I love it.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that, because we get disconnected from that when we're pregnant and when we're in that postpartum window. We completely forget about that process, and then it kind of comes back in. And I think that is a really beautiful timestamp to bring something more sacred back in, or more ceremonial back in, even if it's something really small like wearing red jewelry. It's a really good idea. Thank you. Anyone else? No? Well, again, thank you for joining tonight. I know that this conversation, it kind of just feels like it's just getting started. And I really envision this format blossoming over the next couple months, and maybe we can all join again in another month's time and pick up where we left off and experiment with some new ideas that we've been able to share tonight. And thank you, Christine, again for hosting the idea. This can take.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, like I said, it's really, really cool to not only have the opportunity to meet and see people's faces digitally in the comfort of our own homes, but to meet with women who have a very unique shared experience of going through this Ayurvedic postpartum training together. I think it allows us, again, that sensitivity to what mothers actually need and how we're able to tailor our own personal care as well as the care we give to others. With just a little bit more sensitivity, and I'm super inspired. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So good to see you all.
Yeah, so good.
I'll be sending the recording out and everyone's contact information, and let's keep in touch and let's do it again.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Cassie.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.